The phone call that saved my life was meant for someone else. Mr. Mitchell? This is Robert from Peaceful Gardens Cemetery. I'm calling to confirm that your wife paid for 2 burial plots yesterday. Will you be coming by this week to finalize the arrangements? I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling the world tilt sideways. I'm sorry, what? The 2 burial plots. Your wife, Patricia Mitchell, paid for 2 side-by-side plots in our Garden of Serenity section. Premium location. She said you'd be in touch about the headstone specifications. My name is Jerome Mitchell. I'm 64 years old, and I've been married to Patricia for 35 years. And I had no idea my wife had bought us cemetery plots. There must be some mistake, I told Robert. My wife and I never discussed buying burial plots. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Mitchell. She said it was a surprise. She mentioned that you'd been feeling under the weather lately, and she wanted to take care of everything in advance. Very thoughtful woman, your wife. Under the weather. That was putting it mildly. For the past 6 months, I'd been getting sicker and sicker. Fatigue, nausea, headaches, dizzy spells. My doctor couldn't find anything wrong with me, but I felt like I was dying by inches. Could you tell me the names on the burial arrangement? Of course. Jerome Mitchell and, let me see, Marcus Thompson. Is Mr. Thompson a family member? Marcus Thompson. I'd never heard that name in my life. No, I said quietly. No, he's not family. Oh, well, perhaps Mrs. Mitchell can clarify when she comes in. She seemed very specific about wanting the plots side by side. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for 20 minutes, staring at the wall and trying to make sense of what I'd just learned. My wife had bought 2 burial plots, one for me and one for a complete stranger named Marcus Thompson. She'd told the funeral director I was under the weather and might be needing the plot soon. That's when the pieces started falling into place. The mysterious illnesses that started 6 months ago, right around the time Patricia began making me special health smoothies every morning. The way she'd hover over me while I drank them, watching to make sure I finished every drop. The concerned look she'd give me when I complained about feeling sick, followed by suggestions that maybe I should update my will, just to be safe. The life insurance policy she'd convinced me to increase to $500,000 last year. We're getting older, Jerome. I want to make sure I'm taken care of if something happens to you. And now, cemetery plots for me and a man I'd never heard of. My loving wife of 35 years wasn't just planning for my death. She was planning to cause it. And she'd already picked out who she wanted to spend eternity with, and it wasn't me. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began, though I didn't know it at the time. I met Patricia in 1989 when I was 28 and she was 24. I was a supervisor at the Ford plant in Atlanta, making good money with excellent benefits. She was working as a receptionist at a medical office downtown, beautiful and ambitious. Patricia was everything I thought I wanted in a woman. Tall, elegant, with a smile that could light up a room and a laugh that made you want to keep telling jokes just to hear it again. She dressed like she had money even though she didn't, carried herself with confidence, and had dreams of becoming someone important. We met at a church social function. I was there because my mother had been nagging me to find a good Christian woman and settle down. Patricia was there because, as I'd learn later, she was always looking for opportunities to meet men with stable jobs and steady incomes. You work at Ford? She asked when we were introduced. That must be good work. Steady. I should have paid more attention to how quickly the conversation turned to my job, my benefits, my prospects for advancement. But I was smitten. Here was this gorgeous woman showing interest in me, asking about my life, laughing at my jokes. We dated for 8 months before I proposed. Looking back, I realized she was interviewing me as much as dating me. She asked detailed questions about my health insurance, my pension plan, my family's medical history. She wanted to know about my parents' house, whether I'd inherit it someday, what my long-term financial plans were. I want to make sure we're compatible in all the important ways, she'd say when I teased her about being practical. The wedding in June 1990 was everything she'd dreamed of: expensive dress, fancy reception, honeymoon in Hawaii that took me 2 years to pay off. Patricia handled all the planning while I worked overtime to afford the wedding she wanted. "This is our one chance to do this right," she'd say whenever I suggested maybe we could scale back on some of the expenses. "I want our wedding to be perfect." Our early years together were good, or at least I thought they were. Patricia quit her receptionist job after we married, saying she wanted to focus on making our house a home. She was an excellent homemaker, great cook, kept the house spotless, managed our finances with precision. But there were things that should have bothered me more than they did. Like how she never wanted to have children. "Not yet," she'd say whenever I brought it up. "Let's get established first. Let's make sure we're financially secure." Years went by, and it was always, "not yet." When I turned 35, I started pushing harder for kids. "Patricia, we're not getting any younger. If we're going to have a family, we need to start soon." "Jerome, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm just not sure I'm mother material. Some women are meant to be mothers, and some are meant to be wives. I think I'm better as a wife." I was disappointed, but I loved her. If she didn't want children, I could accept that. I thought we were building something together, that our marriage was partnership enough. In 1995, Patricia started working part-time as a bookkeeper for a small accounting firm. She said she was bored at home and wanted to contribute financially. The extra money was nice, and she seemed happier having work to do. That's where she met Marcus Thompson. I didn't know his name then, of course. All I knew was that Patricia seemed different after she started working. More energetic, more interested in her appearance, more secretive about her phone calls. "It's just work stuff," she'd say when I'd ask about the calls she'd take in the other room. "Client confidentiality, you know." She started working longer hours, going in on weekends, attending work functions that I wasn't invited to. "It's just the office staff," she'd explain. "Very boring. You wouldn't enjoy it." By 1997, Patricia had been promoted to senior bookkeeper, and she was practically running the office. She was making good money, had her own car, her own credit cards, her own sense of independence. And she was having an affair. I didn't know it then, but Marcus Thompson was a divorced insurance agent who rented office space in the same building as Patricia's accounting firm. He was 45, had 2 grown children from his first marriage, and was looking for a woman who could provide the kind of stable, comfortable life he wanted in his later years. What he found was my wife. Patricia started taking business trips. Conferences, she said. Training seminars. Professional development opportunities that would help her advance in her career. "You don't mind, do you, Jerome? It's only for a few days, and it's really good for my career." I didn't mind. I was proud that my wife was ambitious, that she was building something for herself. I worked my shifts at the plant, came home to a clean house and a hot dinner, and felt like I was living the American dream. I had no idea that my wife's business trips were romantic getaways with another man. I had no idea that her overtime was spent in Marcus Thompson's apartment. I had no idea that while I was working double shifts to pay for the house, the cars, the lifestyle we'd built together, she was planning a future that didn't include me. The affair went on for years. Patricia became an expert at managing 2 lives, the one she lived with me, where she played the role of devoted wife, and the one she lived with Marcus, where she was planning for the future she really wanted. In 2010, when I turned 49, Patricia started talking about life insurance. "We're not young anymore, Jerome. What would happen to me if something happened to you? Your pension wouldn't cover everything. I'd probably have to sell the house." She was right, of course. I was getting older, working a physical job that was getting harder every year. It made sense to plan for the future. "How much do you think we need?" I asked. "Well, the house is worth about $200,000 now. Add in the cars, credit cards, living expenses. I think $300,000 would be safe." So we bought a $300,000 life insurance policy with Patricia as the beneficiary. She handled all the paperwork, dealt with the insurance agent, made sure everything was set up properly. What I didn't know was that the insurance agent was Marcus Thompson. The signs were there, glaring and obvious, but I was too trusting to see them. Or maybe I saw them and chose not to believe what they meant. Love makes you stupid, but so does the desire to believe that your life is what you think it is. By 2015, Patricia had changed. She was more confident, more assertive, more willing to make decisions without consulting me. She'd redecorated the house without asking my opinion, opened her own savings account for emergencies, and started talking about our future in ways that made me uncomfortable. When you retire, Jerome, maybe we should think about moving somewhere warmer. Florida, maybe. Start fresh. I like it here. This is our home. Home is wherever we are together. Besides, wouldn't it be nice to be somewhere with no history? No baggage. No history. No baggage. Like our 25 years of marriage was something to be left behind. She started paying more attention to my health, too. Always asking how I felt, whether I was tired, if I'd been to the doctor lately. You work so hard, baby. I worry about you. Men your age need to be careful about their hearts, their blood pressure. She'd cut articles out of magazines about men dying young from stress and overwork. She'd leave them on the kitchen counter where I'd see them while drinking my morning coffee. Did you see this article about that man in Ohio? 55 years old, dropped dead at work. Heart attack. His wife didn't even know he was having chest pains. When I turned 55 in 2015, Patricia convinced me to get a complete physical. I want to make sure you're healthy, Jerome. I can't lose you. The doctor said I was in excellent shape for a man my age. Good blood pressure, good cholesterol, strong heart. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, he told me. Patricia seemed almost disappointed with the results. That same year, she suggested we increase our life insurance. Jerome, $300,000 isn't really enough anymore. The house has appreciated, our expenses have gone up. If something happened to you, I'd be struggling. How much are you thinking? Well, I've been doing some calculations. With inflation, final expenses, the mortgage, I think $500,000 would be more realistic. $500,000. $500,000. Enough for a woman to start a new life with a new man and never worry about money again. Marcus Thompson, still her insurance agent, was happy to write the new policy. He even came to our house to finalize the paperwork. This is Marcus Thompson, Patricia said when she introduced us. He's been handling our insurance for years. He's the best agent in the city. Marcus was tall, well-dressed, with the kind of smooth confidence that comes from years of selling people things they're not sure they need. He shook my hand, complimented our house, made small talk about the weather and the economy. Your wife is very smart to think about these things, he told me. Most people don't plan ahead the way she does. I should have noticed how comfortable they were with each other. Should have seen the way Patricia hung on his every word, the way she laughed a little too hard at his jokes, the way they seemed to have their own rhythm of conversation that excluded me. Instead, I signed the papers and felt good about providing for my wife's future. In 2018, Patricia started talking about my will. Jerome, when was the last time you updated your will? We should make sure everything is current. I don't know. Maybe 10 years ago. 10 years? Honey, that's not good. Things change. Laws change. We need to make sure everything is set up right so there won't be any problems when the time comes. The time comes. Like my death was inevitable and imminent. We met with a lawyer who helped me set up a simple will, leaving everything to Patricia. The house, the cars, my pension, my savings, my life insurance, all of it going to the woman who'd stood by me for almost 30 years. This gives Patricia complete control over your estate, the lawyer explained. She won't have to deal with probate court or any complicated legal processes. Everything transfers directly to her. That's what we want, Patricia said quickly. I don't want to have to worry about legal complications when I'm grieving. By 2020, Patricia had started cooking special meals for me. Health-conscious meals, she called them. Lots of vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains. You're not getting any younger, Jerome. We need to take better care of your health. She bought a juicer and started making me fresh vegetable smoothies every morning. Green concoctions that tasted awful but that she insisted were full of vitamins and minerals I needed. Drink it all, she'd say, watching me like a hawk. It's expensive to make, and all those nutrients will go to waste if you don't finish it. The smoothies became a daily ritual. Every morning, Patricia would blend up some combination of kale, spinach, celery, and other vegetables I couldn't identify. She'd hand me the glass and watch while I choked it down. It's an acquired taste, she'd say when I complained about how bad it was. But it's so good for you. I read that men who drink fresh vegetable juice every day live longer than men who don't. About 6 months after the smoothies started, I began getting sick. Nothing dramatic at first, just general fatigue, occasional nausea, headaches that came and went. Maybe you should see the doctor, Patricia suggested. You haven't been yourself lately. The doctor ran tests but couldn't find anything wrong. Probably just stress, he said. Maybe you're working too hard. Any major changes in your life recently? Not really. Patricia's been trying to get me to eat healthier. I've been drinking these vegetable smoothies every morning. Well, that's good. Proper nutrition is important as we age. But I kept getting sicker. The fatigue got worse. The nausea became more frequent. I started having dizzy spells, moments where I felt like I might pass out. Patricia was very attentive during my illness. She'd bring me soup, make sure I took vitamins, encourage me to rest. Maybe you should think about retiring early, she suggested. You've been working for over 30 years. You've earned the right to take it easy. I can't retire yet. We need the income. Jerome, we're not poor. I'm working, we have savings, and if something happened to you, the life insurance would take care of everything. Maybe it's time to think about enjoying life instead of working yourself to death. Working yourself to death. An interesting choice of words. The worst part about being slowly poisoned by your wife is that you participate in your own murder. Every morning, I'd drink the smoothie she made me. Every time I felt sick, I'd let her take care of me. Every time she suggested I see the doctor, I'd go and let him tell me there was nothing wrong. By early 2024, I was sick most days. The nausea was constant, the fatigue was overwhelming, and I'd developed a tremor in my hands that made it hard to do my job at the plant. Jerome, you need to face reality, Patricia said one morning as I struggled to get ready for work. You're not well. Maybe it's time to think about disability benefits. I'm not disabled. I don't know what's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with you that some rest wouldn't fix. You've been pushing yourself too hard for too long. Your body is telling you to slow down. She'd researched disability benefits, Social Security, early retirement options. She had all the information ready, all the forms printed out, all the phone numbers I'd need to call. I can handle all the paperwork, she offered. You just focus on getting better. Getting better. But I wasn't getting better. I was getting worse every day, and Patricia seemed almost excited about it. She started talking about death more often. Not in a morbid way, but in a practical planning ahead way that made my skin crawl. Jerome, I know this is hard to talk about, but we should discuss what you want for your funeral. Do you want to be buried or cremated? What kind of service would you want? I don't want to talk about that. I know, baby, but someone has to think about these things. I don't want to have to make all those decisions when I'm grieving. It would help me to know what you'd want. She brought home brochures from funeral homes. She'd leave them on the kitchen counter, next to the articles about men dying young from mysterious illnesses. I'm not trying to be morbid, she'd say when I complained. I'm trying to be prepared. In March 2024, Patricia suggested we take out an additional life insurance policy. I know we already have $500,000, but I've been thinking. With inflation, with medical costs, with everything going up, maybe we should have a little more coverage. How much more? Maybe another $200,000? Just to be safe. $700,000 total. More than enough for a widow to start a new life with her lover. But the insurance company required a medical exam for the additional coverage. When the nurse came to our house to draw blood and check my vital signs, I could see Patricia watching nervously from the kitchen. "Mr. Mitchell," the nurse said after completing the exam, "have you been feeling all right lately? Your hands are shaking, and your heart rate is elevated." "I haven't been feeling well for a while. Fatigue, nausea, that kind of thing." "Have you seen a doctor?" "Several times. They can't find anything wrong." The nurse made notes on her clipboard. "Well, the insurance company will review your medical records and the results of today's exam. They'll let you know if the additional coverage is approved." 2 weeks later, we got a letter denying the additional coverage. Based on the applicant's current health status and recent medical history, we are unable to approve additional life insurance at this time. Patricia was furious. "That's ridiculous," she said. "You're not sick. You're just tired from working too much. We should appeal this decision." But I was secretly relieved. Something about Patricia's eagerness to increase my life insurance had been bothering me, though I couldn't put my finger on what. That's when she started talking about making sure our affairs were in order. "Jerome, I want to make sure I know where everything is. Bank accounts, investment records, insurance policies. If something happened to you, I'd need to know how to access everything." She went through all our financial records, made copies of everything, organized it all in a file cabinet that only she had the key to. This way, if there's ever an emergency, I won't have to go searching through papers while I'm dealing with other things. Other things. Like planning my funeral while I was still alive. In April 2024, Patricia started encouraging me to see a new doctor. "I found this specialist who deals with mysterious illnesses," she said. "Dr. Harrison. He might be able to figure out what's wrong with you." Dr. Harrison was expensive and didn't take insurance, but Patricia insisted it was worth it. "Your health is more important than money, Jerome." Dr. Harrison ran extensive tests, including blood work that checked for toxins and heavy metals. When the results came back, he asked to speak with me privately. "Mr. Mitchell, I need to ask you some questions about your lifestyle. Do you work with chemicals? Are you exposed to pesticides? Do you take any herbal supplements?" "No, nothing like that." "Why?" "Your blood work shows elevated levels of several compounds that shouldn't be there. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but concerning." "What kind of compounds?" "It's hard to say without more testing. But I'd recommend avoiding any unnecessary medications or supplements until we figure out what's causing these readings." When I told Patricia what the doctor had said, she seemed nervous. "Elevated levels of what?" "He didn't specify. But he said I should stop taking any supplements or medications that aren't absolutely necessary." "That's probably a good idea. Maybe you should stop drinking the vegetable smoothies too, just to be safe." Stop drinking the smoothies. After 8 months of insisting they were essential for my health, she was suddenly willing to have me stop drinking them. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything that had happened over the past year. The smoothies, the sickness, the insurance policies, the funeral planning. The pieces were there, but I didn't want to put them together because the picture they formed was too horrible to accept. My wife, the woman I'd loved and trusted for 35 years, wasn't just planning for my death. She was causing it. After that phone call from the cemetery, I sat in my kitchen trying to process what I'd learned. My wife had bought 2 burial plots, one for me and one for Marcus Thompson, a man whose name I'd never heard before that moment. The pieces started falling into place with terrifying clarity. The smoothies that made me sick. The increased life insurance. The constant talk about death and funeral planning. The mysterious compounds in my blood that Dr. Harrison couldn't identify. Patricia wasn't just planning for my death, she was actively causing it. And she'd already picked out who she wanted to spend eternity with. I needed to know who Marcus Thompson was. I started in Patricia's home office, a small room where she kept her work files and personal papers. I'd never had reason to go through her things before, but trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. In her desk drawer, underneath a stack of client files from the accounting firm, I found a cell phone I'd never seen before. It was an older model, the kind you might use if you didn't want your calls tracked to your main number. I turned it on and scrolled through the recent messages. Most of them were to and from a contact listed simply as M. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Hotel is booked. Jerome's getting sicker. Doctor says maybe a few more months. The cemetery plots are paid for. Everything is ready. I love you. Soon we won't have to hide anymore. Love you too. Just a little longer. 35 years of marriage, and my wife was texting another man about my impending death like it was a vacation they were planning. I kept searching and found more evidence hidden throughout the house. Bank statements showing payments to Thompson Insurance Services. Hotel receipts for weekends when Patricia claimed to be visiting her sister. Restaurant bills for 2 people on nights when she said she was working late. In a shoebox in her closet, I found letters. Love letters from Marcus Thompson, written over the course of years, talking about their future together and how much he loved her. One letter from 2020 made my blood run cold. I know this is hard, baby, but we just have to be patient a little longer. Once Jerome's health gets worse and he's not able to work anymore, you can make your move. The life insurance will give us enough to start fresh somewhere warm. Florida, like we talked about. We can get married, buy that little house by the beach, live the life we've always dreamed of. They'd been planning my murder for years. But the most damning evidence was a receipt from a garden supply store dated 6 months ago, right around the time I started getting sick. Patricia had purchased something called all-natural plant food that, according to the internet, contained arsenic and other compounds that could cause the exact symptoms I'd been experiencing. Small doses over time. Untraceable unless someone was specifically looking for it. Delivered daily in fresh vegetable smoothies that I drank willingly because I trusted my wife. My loving wife of 35 years had been slowly poisoning me. I spent the rest of the day gathering evidence and trying to figure out what to do. I could go to the police, but what proof did I have that would stand up in court? Love letters and hotel receipts proved an affair, but they didn't prove attempted murder. Even the receipt for plant food could be explained away. And Patricia was smart. She'd been planning this for years, covering her tracks, making sure everything looked natural. If I died, it would just be another middle-aged man whose health failed after years of hard work and stress. That evening, Patricia came home from work with Chinese takeout and a concerned expression. "How are you feeling today, baby? You look pale." "I'm okay. Just tired. Maybe you should skip the smoothie tomorrow morning. Give your stomach a rest." Skip the smoothie. Now that she knew I'd been to Dr. Harrison and had blood work done, she needed to back off the poisoning for a while. "Actually, I think I'll stop drinking them altogether. They're not agreeing with me." "That's probably smart. We can find other ways to get you the nutrients you need." "Other ways? Like maybe a more direct approach to ending my life." "Patricia, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you know anyone named Marcus Thompson?" The look that flashed across her face lasted only a second, but it was enough. Pure panic, followed immediately by calculation. "Marcus Thompson? No, I don't think so." "Why?" "Someone at work mentioned him. Thought you might know him from your accounting job." "No, doesn't ring a bell. Common name, though." She was lying smoothly, professionally, the way someone lies when they've had years of practice. "I'm going to take a shower," she said, gathering up the takeout containers. "Don't wait up for me. I have some work to catch up on tonight." Work to catch up on? Or a boyfriend to call and warn that I might be getting suspicious? After she went upstairs, I sat in my living room looking around at the house we'd built together. 35 years of memories, 35 years of shared experiences, 35 years of what I thought was love. All of it contaminated by the truth I'd finally discovered. My wife didn't love me. She probably never had. I was just a means to an end, a steady paycheck, a comfortable lifestyle, and eventually, a $500,000 insurance payout that would fund her real life with her real love. But here's what Patricia didn't know. I wasn't going to die quietly. I wasn't going to make it easy for her. If she wanted me dead, she was going to have to work for it. And when she made her move, I was going to be ready. Over the next few days, I started playing detective in my own home. Patricia had no idea I knew about Marcus Thompson or the cemetery plots, so she continued her routine of pretending to be the devoted wife while secretly planning my murder. But now I was watching everything she did with new eyes. I followed her to work one morning and saw her meet Marcus Thompson in the parking lot of her office building. He was exactly what I'd expected. Well-dressed, confident, the kind of man who probably never had to work with his hands or worry about plant layoffs. They embraced like lovers, not like business associates, and I watched them drive away together in his car. I called in sick and spent the day following them. They went to a hotel across town, the kind of place that rents rooms by the hour or by the week. They stayed for 2 hours, then went to lunch at an expensive restaurant I couldn't afford on my plant salary. But Marcus Thompson could afford it. I did some research and found out he owned a successful insurance agency, had a house in an exclusive neighborhood, drove a car that cost more than I made in a year. Patricia had traded up. Or at least, she was planning to. That evening, she came home acting like nothing had happened. "How are you feeling today, honey? Did you rest?" "Yeah, I slept most of the day." "Good. That's what you need." She made dinner, nothing special, but she watched me eat with the same intensity she used to watch me drink the smoothies. Looking for signs that whatever she was doing to me was working. After dinner, she suggested we watch a movie. "Something romantic," she said. "We don't spend enough time together anymore." The irony was suffocating. She wanted to spend time together before she killed me. We watched an old movie about a couple who'd been married for 50 years, and Patricia cried during the emotional scenes. "I hope we're like that when we're old," she said, curled up against me on the couch. Still in love after all these years. Still in love. The woman who was slowly poisoning me was talking about growing old together. "Patricia," I said, testing her, "what would you do if something happened to me?" "What do you mean?" "If I died, what would you do with your life?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't like to think about that. But if you had to, would you stay here? Would you move somewhere else?" I think I'd probably move. Too many memories here. Maybe somewhere warm, where I could start fresh. Somewhere warm. Like Florida, where Marcus Thompson had written about buying a little house by the beach. "Would you get married again?" Another pause. "Maybe. Eventually. If I found the right person." The right person. She'd already found him. She was just waiting for me to die so she could be with him openly. The next morning, Patricia didn't make me a smoothie. Instead, she made coffee and toast, which she served with unusual attention. "I added some honey to your coffee," she said. "And I buttered the toast just the way you like it." Honey. I wondered what else she'd added to the coffee. "Actually, I'm not hungry this morning," I said. "My stomach's still upset." "You have to eat something, Jerome. You're already too thin." "I'll grab something at work." I saw the flash of frustration cross her face. She'd prepared something special for me, and I wasn't cooperating. That's when I realized she'd moved from slow poisoning to something more direct. Whatever was in that coffee was meant to finish the job quickly. I left for work but doubled back and parked down the street where I could watch the house. Within an hour, Marcus Thompson's car pulled into my driveway. He stayed for 3 hours. When I got home that evening, Patricia was cooking dinner with unusual enthusiasm. "How was work, baby?" "Fine. What's for dinner? Your favorite. Meatloaf with mashed potatoes. My favorite. She was making my favorite meal, the same meal she'd made for our first anniversary, our 10th anniversary, every birthday and celebration we'd shared. But now it felt like a last meal. Patricia, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? I've been thinking about what you said yesterday. About what would happen if something happened to me. Jerome, I told you I don't like talking about that. I know, but I think we need to be practical. I've been feeling worse lately, and maybe we should make sure all our affairs are in order. What do you mean? I mean, maybe I should make sure you know where everything is. Bank accounts, insurance policies, all the important papers. Her eyes lit up with interest. That's very thoughtful of you. And maybe we should talk about funeral arrangements. What I'd want, what would be easiest for you to handle. Jerome, you're scaring me. Are you feeling that much worse? I just want to be prepared. Like you said, someone has to think about these things. That night, Patricia was more affectionate than she'd been in months. She held me close in bed, told me she loved me, said she couldn't imagine life without me. I love you too, I told her, and in that moment, I meant it. Despite everything she'd done, despite what she was planning to do, I still loved the woman I thought I'd married 35 years ago. But that woman was gone. Maybe she'd never existed at all. The woman lying next to me was a stranger who'd been playing a role for decades, waiting for the right moment to collect her payoff and start her real life. Tomorrow, I was going to give her that opportunity. But not the way she expected. I decided to confront Patricia directly, but I needed to be smart about it. If she was desperate enough to murder me, she might be dangerous if she felt cornered. The next morning, I called in sick to work again and waited until Patricia left for her job. Then I gathered all the evidence I'd collected, the secret phone, the love letters, the hotel receipts, the receipt for the plant food, printouts of Marcus Thompson's insurance agency information. I arranged it all on our dining room table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together, celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, made plans for what we thought was our future. When Patricia came home from work that evening, she found me sitting at the table with the evidence spread out in front of me. Jerome? What's all this? Sit down, Patricia. We need to talk. She looked at the table, and I saw the exact moment when she recognized what she was seeing. Her face went completely white, and she grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. Where did you get these? From your desk. From your closet. From your secret hiding places all over this house. She sat down heavily, staring at the evidence like it might disappear if she looked hard enough. Jerome, I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you've been having an affair with Marcus Thompson for years? Explain how you've been slowly poisoning me with arsenic? Explain how you bought cemetery plots for you and your boyfriend while planning to murder your husband. I didn't. You didn't what? You didn't buy cemetery plots? Because I have the receipt. You didn't poison me? Because I have the receipt for the plant food, and I know what's in it. You didn't plan to kill me for the insurance money? Because I have love letters from Marcus talking about your future together in Florida. She started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, of anger at being caught. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she said. What wasn't supposed to happen like this? My murder. It's not murder. You're sick, Jerome. You've been sick for months. Everyone can see that. I'm sick because you've been poisoning me. That's not. I would never. I picked up the receipt from the garden center and put it in front of her. All natural plant food. Purchased 6 months ago, right around the time I started getting sick. Want to tell me what this was for? The garden. I was fertilizing the flower beds. We don't have flower beds, Patricia. We have grass and 3 bushes that don't need fertilizer. She looked at the receipt, then at me, and I could see her trying to come up with another lie. Okay, she said finally. Yes, I've been seeing Marcus. Yes, I love him. But I never tried to hurt you, Jerome. I would never hurt you. Then explain the plant food. Explain why you bought something containing arsenic and other toxins right before I started showing symptoms of heavy metal poisoning. I don't know. Maybe I thought it would help you. Help me what? Die. Help you. Let go. You've been so miserable at work, so tired all the time. I thought if you got sick enough, you'd retire, and then we could figure things out. Figure things out? You mean figure out how to kill me without getting caught? No. I mean figure out how to end our marriage without destroying you financially. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. End our marriage? Patricia, you bought cemetery plots. You weren't planning to divorce me. You were planning to bury me. The cemetery plots were for later. Much later. When we're both old and Marcus Thompson? Were you planning to be old with him too? She couldn't answer that. How long? I asked. How long have you been planning to kill me? I wasn't planning to kill you. How long have you been with Marcus? She was quiet for a long moment. 5 years. 5 years. So you've been cheating on me for 5 years, planning our future in Florida, increasing my life insurance, and slowly poisoning me. But you weren't planning to kill me. It wasn't like that. Then tell me what it was like. I fell in love with Marcus, yes. But I also loved you, Jerome. I didn't want to hurt you by leaving you, and I didn't want to destroy you financially with a divorce. So you decided to poison me instead. I decided to help nature take its course. Help nature take its course. I stared at her in disbelief. You call deliberate arsenic poisoning helping nature take its course? You were going to die anyway, Jerome. Everyone dies. I thought if it happened sooner rather than later, while you still had the insurance and before you got too old to enjoy retirement. You thought you were doing me a favor by murdering me. I thought I was doing both of us a favor. You wouldn't have to suffer through old age and declining health, and I wouldn't have to watch you suffer. The casual way she talked about my death, like it was a business decision she'd made for both our benefits, was more chilling than any threat could have been. And Marcus? What does he think about your plan to murder your husband? He doesn't know about the plant food. But he knows about the insurance money. He knows about the cemetery plots. He knows about the plan to start fresh in Florida after I'm dead. She nodded reluctantly. So he's fine with profiting from my murder, he just doesn't want to know the details. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Patricia? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you and your boyfriend conspired to kill me for money. She put her face in her hands and started sobbing. I never wanted it to go this far. I just wanted to be happy. You wanted to be happy, so you decided to kill your husband. I wanted to be with Marcus without destroying everything we'd built together. Everything we'd built together? Patricia, you've been living a lie for 5 years. You've been stealing from me, betraying me, poisoning me. There is no we anymore. There probably never was. She looked up at me through her tears. So what happens now? Now you're going to tell me everything. Every detail of your plan, every conversation you've had with Marcus about my death, every step you've taken to make this happen. And then what? Then we're going to call the police, and you're going to confess to attempted murder. Jerome, please. Think about what this would do to our families, our friends. Think about the scandal. You should have thought about that before you started poisoning me. But even as I said it, I realized I didn't want to go to the police. I wanted something else. I wanted justice on my own terms. After our confrontation, Patricia became desperate. She knew I had evidence of her affair and her attempts to poison me, but she wasn't ready to give up on her plan. Instead, she doubled down. The next morning, She was making coffee when I came into the kitchen. "I made your favorite," she said, holding out a mug. "Just the way you like it." I looked at the coffee, then at her face. She was smiling, but her eyes were cold and calculating. "No thanks. I'm not drinking anything you make anymore. Jerome, we need to move past this. We need to work together to figure out how to fix our marriage." "Our marriage can't be fixed, Patricia. You've been trying to kill me." "I made a mistake. I got confused, mixed up with Marcus, and I made some bad decisions. But we can work through this." "Bad decisions? You call systematic poisoning a bad decision?" "I call it a moment of temporary insanity that I deeply regret." She'd had all night to come up with a strategy, and this was it. Claim temporary insanity, ask for forgiveness, try to convince me to keep quiet about what she'd done. "If you're really sorry," I said, "you'll end your relationship with Marcus and turn yourself in to the police." "I can't do that, Jerome. Think about what it would do to my career, my reputation. Think about what it would do to our families. You should have thought about that before you started poisoning me." "I'll end things with Marcus," she said quickly. "I'll never see him again. We can go to counseling, work on our marriage, start over. While keeping the $500,000 life insurance policy. We can reduce it if that would make you feel better." "Reduce it?" "Not cancel it entirely, just reduce it to a more reasonable murder payout." "Patricia, you don't understand. There's no going back from this. You tried to kill me. That's not something we work through in counseling. People make mistakes, Jerome. Even big mistakes. That doesn't mean they can't change, can't do better. Attempted murder isn't a mistake. It's a crime. It wasn't attempted murder. It was negligence. Stupidity. I thought the plant food was just plant food. I didn't know it contained harmful chemicals." She was already preparing her defense, crafting a story that would explain away the evidence without admitting intent to kill. Over the next few days, Patricia became increasingly erratic. She'd alternate between tearful apologies and angry accusations, between promises to change and threats about what would happen if I went to the police. "You have no proof that I intended to hurt you," she said during one of our arguments. "All you have is circumstantial evidence that could be explained a dozen different ways. I have love letters from Marcus talking about starting over after I die." He was speaking hypothetically. People in affairs often fantasize about what would happen if their situations changed. "I have receipts showing you bought poison." "I bought plant food. If it happened to contain chemicals that made you sick, that's the manufacturer's fault, not mine. I have cemetery plots you bought for yourself and your boyfriend." "I bought cemetery plots for myself and Marcus because I love him and I want to be buried next to him someday. That doesn't mean I planned to kill you soon." She'd thought through every piece of evidence and had an explanation for all of it. Not good explanations, but plausible enough to create reasonable doubt in a courtroom. But the most disturbing change in Patricia was her growing desperation. She'd invested 5 years in her plan to be with Marcus, and she wasn't ready to give up on it just because I'd discovered what she was doing. She started making phone calls in other rooms, whispering conversations that stopped when I came near. She began staying out late, claiming she was working overtime or having dinner with girlfriends. And she kept trying to get me to eat or drink things she prepared. "I made soup," she'd say, presenting me with a bowl of homemade chicken soup. "You love my chicken soup." "I'm not hungry." "You have to eat something, Jerome. You're getting too thin." "I'll make my own food." "Don't be ridiculous. I've been cooking for you for 35 years. And poisoning me for the last 6 months. That was an accident. How many times do I have to tell you it was an accident?" But her accidents kept happening. Coffee that tasted bitter. Sandwiches that made my stomach hurt. Dinner that left me feeling dizzy and nauseous. I stopped eating anything Patricia prepared and started buying my own food, keeping it locked in my truck where she couldn't get to it. That's when she escalated to more direct methods. I woke up one night to find her standing over my bed with a pillow in her hands. When she saw that I was awake, she pretended she was just fluffing it. "You were snoring," she said. "I was going to put the pillow over your face to muffle the sound. With me still sleeping on it, I was going to move your head first." Move my head first. Right. Another night, I found her in the bathroom going through my medications. She said she was organizing them to make sure I wasn't taking anything that might interact badly with my condition. What condition? Your mysterious illness. I'm worried that some of these medications might be making you sicker. So you were going to throw them away? I was going to research them, make sure they're safe. But when I checked later, my blood pressure medication was gone, along with the heart pills my doctor had prescribed after my last physical. Patricia was no longer content to wait for slow poisoning to work. She wanted me dead quickly, and she was willing to try more direct approaches. That's when I realized I needed help. I couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Patricia was right about the evidence being circumstantial, and I needed more than suspicion to make a case that would stick. But I also couldn't handle this alone. I needed someone who would believe me and help me figure out what to do. The last person I expected to find as an ally was Dr. Harrison, the expensive specialist Patricia had convinced me to see. I made an appointment and told him everything. The poisoning, the affair, the cemetery plots, Patricia's escalating attempts to kill me. "Mr. Mitchell," he said after I'd finished my story, "I have to tell you, some of what you're describing sounds like paranoid delusions. Poisoning paranoia is actually a symptom of certain psychiatric conditions." I know how it sounds, but I have evidence. I showed him the receipts, the love letters, the phone records. I showed him photos of the plant food Patricia had purchased and explained how the timing coincided with the start of my illness. Dr. Harrison studied everything carefully, then looked at my medical file. "Your blood work did show elevated levels of several concerning compounds," he admitted. "And the symptoms you've been experiencing are consistent with gradual heavy metal poisoning." "So you believe me?" "I believe something unusual is happening to you. Whether it's intentional poisoning or accidental exposure to toxins, I can't say for certain. But I can help you figure out what's in your system and how to counteract it." He prescribed a chelation treatment to help remove heavy metals from my blood, and he gave me a number for a toxicologist who could analyze samples of anything Patricia tried to give me. "But Mr. Mitchell, if you really believe your wife is trying to kill you, you need to contact the authorities." "I will. But first, I need more evidence. Be very careful. If she's as desperate as you think she is, she might try something more direct." Dr. Harrison was right to be concerned. That same week, I had 2 close calls that could have been accidents but probably weren't. The first happened when I was working in the garage. I was under my truck changing the oil when the jack slipped and the vehicle came crashing down. If I hadn't been positioned just right, it would have crushed me. Patricia came running out of the house when she heard the crash. "Jerome, are you okay? What happened?" "The jack slipped. Oh my God, you could have been killed. We need to get you to the hospital." "I'm fine. Just bruised." But when I examined the jack later, I found that the release valve had been loosened. Not enough to fail immediately, but enough to fail under pressure. The second incident happened a few days later. I was replacing a light fixture in our bedroom when I got shocked by what should have been a dead wire. The shock knocked me off the ladder and could have killed me if I'd been standing on a metal surface instead of wood. When I checked the electrical box, I found that someone had turned the breaker back on after I'd switched it off for safety. "I thought you were done with the electrical work," Patricia said when I confronted her about it. "I turned the breaker back on because the outlets in that room weren't working." "I told you I was still working on it." "I'm sorry, I forgot." "Thank God you're okay." Thank God, or damn the bad luck that I'd survived. But my unexpected ally turned out to be Marcus Thompson himself. I'd been watching their meeting places and following their routines for weeks. I knew when they met, where they went, how long they stayed together. And I'd been looking for an opportunity to confront Marcus directly. That opportunity came when I saw him leaving Patricia's office building alone one evening. I followed him to a bar across town and walked in just as he was ordering a drink. Marcus Thompson. He turned around, and I saw recognition flicker across his face. He knew who I was, even though we'd only met once during the insurance consultation. Jerome Mitchell. Patricia's husband. Yes, I know who you are. What are you doing here? I came to talk to you about my wife. I think you should talk to Patricia about Patricia. I already have. Now I want to talk to you. I could see him calculating his options: deny everything, make a scene, leave quickly. Instead, he gestured to the bar stool next to him. Okay, let's talk. I sat down and ordered a beer. For a moment, we just sat there in silence. How long have you been sleeping with my wife? 5 years. At least he was honest about it. Do you love her? Yes. Do you know she's been trying to kill me? That got his attention. He turned to face me fully. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the plant food she bought 6 months ago. The stuff that contains arsenic and has been making me sick. I'm talking about the cemetery plots she bought for you and her. I'm talking about the $500,000 life insurance policy she's planning to collect when I'm dead. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Patricia told me you were sick. She said you had some kind of degenerative condition. What kind of degenerative condition involves buying cemetery plots and increasing life insurance? She said she wanted to be prepared. She said you were in denial about how sick you were. Did she tell you she was helping me get sicker? What do you mean? I told him about the smoothies, the plant food, the mysterious compounds in my blood. I told him about the recent accidents and Patricia's increasingly desperate behavior. You're saying she's been poisoning you? I'm saying she's been murdering me slowly, and she's been planning to run away with you on the insurance money. Marcus put his head in his hands. Jesus Christ. You didn't know? I knew she was unhappy in her marriage. I knew she wanted to be with me, but I thought we were going to wait until you died naturally. Naturally. And when did you think that was going to happen? I'm 64 years old and in good health. She said you were sick. She said the doctors told you maybe 2 years. No doctor ever told me that. Patricia told you that. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. Oh God. What has she done? Marcus Thompson turned out to be a better man than I'd expected. When he realized that Patricia had been lying to him about my health and manipulating him into being an accomplice to murder, he was genuinely horrified. I never wanted anyone to get hurt, he said. I thought we were just having an affair. I thought we'd be together after you passed away from natural causes years from now. She told you I was dying? She said you had early-stage heart disease and maybe 5 years to live. She said the doctors wanted to keep it quiet so you wouldn't get depressed. Patricia had been playing us both. She'd convinced Marcus that I was dying anyway so he wouldn't feel guilty about their affair, and she'd been actively trying to make that prediction come true. What did she tell you about the cemetery plots? She said she wanted us to be buried together someday, after we were both old and had lived full lives. She said it was romantic. And the life insurance? She said you'd increased it to take care of her after you were gone. She never said she was the one who suggested increasing it. Every detail of Patricia's plan became clearer as Marcus and I talked. She'd been manipulating both of us, feeding us different versions of the same story, making sure neither of us had enough information to see the full picture. I can't believe she's been poisoning you, Marcus said. When she told me you were getting sicker, I actually felt sorry for you. I thought it was tragic that you were so young. She's been giving me arsenic and other toxins for 6 months. If I hadn't found out when I did, I probably would have died within another month or two. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop her. But I need your help. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What kind of help? I need you to help me prove that she's been trying to kill me. The evidence I have is circumstantial. I need something more definitive. Like what? Like recording her admitting to the poisoning. Like catching her in the act of trying to hurt me. Like getting her to confess to the plan. You want me to wear a wire? I want you to help me set up a situation where she reveals the truth about what she's been doing. Marcus looked uncomfortable with the idea, but he also looked like a man who wanted to make amends for his role in the situation. What did you have in mind? Over the next hour, we developed a plan. Marcus would tell Patricia that I was getting suspicious and that they needed to accelerate their timeline. He'd suggest that maybe it was time for a more direct approach to my murder, something that would look like an accident or natural death. She'll resist the idea at first, I told him. She's been careful to make everything look natural. But if she thinks I'm getting close to exposing her, she might be willing to take bigger risks. And you'll be recording the conversation? I'll be recording everything. Phone calls, meetings, whatever it takes to get her to admit what she's been doing. We agreed to meet again in a few days to finalize the details. Marcus would continue his normal routine with Patricia while I gathered more evidence and set up surveillance equipment. But as I was leaving the bar, Marcus grabbed my arm. Jerome, I need to ask you something. What? What's going to happen to Patricia when this is all over? She's going to prison for attempted murder. And what about us? What about me and her? I looked at this man who'd been sleeping with my wife for 5 years, who'd been planning a future with her funded by my death, who'd been unknowingly complicit in my murder. There is no you and her anymore, Marcus. There never really was. She was using you the same way she was using me. You were just too blind to see it. But I love her. You love the version of her that she showed you. Just like I loved the version of her that she showed me. But the real Patricia is someone who poisons her husband for insurance money. Is that the woman you want to spend your life with? He couldn't answer that. Over the next few days, I prepared for the confrontation that would end my marriage and hopefully send Patricia to prison. I bought recording equipment, set up cameras in strategic locations around the house, and made copies of all the evidence I'd gathered. I also made arrangements to protect myself. I told Dr. Harrison what I was planning and asked him to keep detailed records of my treatment for heavy metal poisoning. I wrote out a detailed account of everything that had happened and gave copies to my lawyer and my brother. If Patricia succeeded in killing me before I could expose her, at least there would be evidence pointing to the truth. But I wasn't planning to die. I was planning to give Patricia enough rope to hang herself with. The hardest part was acting normal around her while I waited for Marcus to set things in motion. Patricia continued her routine of pretending to be the concerned wife while looking for opportunities to finish what she'd started. She made me soup that I threw away when she wasn't looking. She offered me coffee that I declined. She suggested we take a romantic weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains where, I suspected, she was planning for me to have a fatal accident. We need some time together, she said. Away from all the stress and distractions. Just you and me. That sounds nice, I said, but I'm not feeling well enough to travel right now. The mountain air would be good for you. And the cabin is so peaceful. It would be the perfect place for you to rest and recover. Rest and recover. Or die quietly where no one would find my body until she was ready for them to. Maybe when I'm feeling better. I could see the frustration in her eyes. Her timeline was being disrupted, and she was getting impatient. Good. Impatient people make mistakes. And I was counting on Patricia to make a big one. Marcus called Patricia the next evening and asked to meet her for dinner. He told her it was urgent, that we needed to talk about their situation. I was positioned in my car across the street from the restaurant, recording equipment ready, waiting to capture whatever Patricia was about to reveal. The conversation started normally, with Marcus expressing his usual affection and Patricia complaining about how difficult I'd been lately. "Jerome's been acting strange," she said. "More suspicious, more paranoid. I think he might be starting to figure things out." "Figure what out?" "About us. About the insurance. About everything." This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Patricia was about to admit to her crimes, thinking she was safe with her lover. "Patricia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." "Okay. Have you been making Jerome sick on purpose?" There was a long pause. I held my breath, waiting for her answer. "What do you mean?" "I mean the plant food you bought, the smoothies you made him, the symptoms that started 6 months ago. Have you been poisoning him?" Another pause, longer this time. "Yes." One word. Simple, direct, damning. I had her confession on tape. "Why?" "Because I love you, Marcus. Because I want to be with you, and Jerome wasn't going to die naturally for another 20 or 30 years. I couldn't wait that long. So you decided to kill him." "I decided to help nature along. He was going to die anyway, eventually. I just accelerated the timeline. By poisoning him. By giving him small doses of chemicals that would simulate natural organ failure. It was supposed to look like his heart gave out or his liver failed. Something that happens to men his age all the time. Marcus was doing exactly what we'd planned. He was getting Patricia to reveal every detail of her murder plot while I recorded it all. And the accidents. The jack that slipped. The electrical shock. Those weren't accidents. Jerome was getting suspicious, and the poisoning was working too slowly. I needed to speed things up. You tried to crush him with his truck. I tried to make it look like an accident. If the jack had failed completely, he would have died instantly, and no one would have questioned it. And if that hadn't worked, then I would have tried something else. The electrical shock should have killed him, but he got lucky. The voltage wasn't high enough. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife of 35 years was casually discussing her multiple attempts to murder me like she was talking about household chores. "Patricia, do you hear yourself right now? You're talking about murdering your husband." "I'm talking about being free to live my life with the man I love. Jerome has had 35 good years with me. That's more than most men get. But you're talking about murder." "I'm talking about love. Everything I've done has been for love. For our love." Marcus was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the strain in his voice when he spoke again. "What if he goes to the police? What if he's already figured everything out?" "He won't go to the police. He has no proof of anything." "What about the plant food receipt? What about the cemetery plots?" "Circumstantial evidence. I can explain all of that." "And who's going to believe that a devoted wife of 35 years suddenly decided to poison her husband?" "It's ridiculous." "But what if he does? What if he exposes everything? Then we'll deal with it. We'll say it was an affair, nothing more. We'll say Jerome is making up the poisoning story because he's angry about the affair. We'll make him look like a jealous, paranoid husband who can't accept that his wife fell in love with someone else." "And the life insurance? What about it? Married couples have life insurance. That's normal. There's nothing suspicious about having life insurance." Patricia had an answer for everything. She'd thought through every angle, prepared for every contingency. She was confident that she could get away with murder because she'd been getting away with lies for so long. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated her husband. "Marcus, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "I need you to help me finish this. The poisoning is taking too long, and the accidents haven't worked. I need to try something more direct." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about making it look like Jerome had a heart attack. Or a stroke. Something sudden and natural that no one would question. How would we do that? There are ways. Drugs that can cause cardiac arrest. Methods that don't leave traces. I've been researching it. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said the words that would seal Patricia's fate. You want me to help you murder your husband. I want you to help me start our life together. That was all I needed to hear. I walked into that restaurant with a recording device in my pocket and 35 years of betrayal burning in my chest. Patricia and Marcus were sitting at a corner table, deep in conversation about my murder. When I appeared next to their table like a ghost they thought they'd already buried. Hello, Patricia. Marcus. Patricia's face went completely white. Marcus just stared at me like I was already dead and he was seeing my spirit. Jerome. Patricia gasped. What are you doing here? I came to hear about your plans for my funeral. Sounds like you've got it all worked out. I pulled out a chair and sat down, placing my phone on the table between us. The recording app was still running. You've been listening to our conversation? Marcus asked. Every word. Very enlightening. I particularly enjoyed the part where my loving wife of 35 years explained how she's been poisoning me for 6 months and planning to make it look like natural causes. Patricia's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. She couldn't speak. And Marcus, I have to say, I'm impressed by your moral flexibility. A few days ago you were horrified to learn that Patricia had been poisoning me. Tonight you're discussing ways to help her finish the job. Jerome, let me explain, Marcus started. Explain what? How you were going to help my wife murder me so you could live off my life insurance money. I think I understand the plan pretty well. We never meant for it to go this far, Patricia finally managed to say. No, you just meant for me to die quickly and quietly so you could start your new life together. The fact that it was taking longer than expected was just an inconvenience. I looked at both of them sitting there, caught in the act of planning my murder, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. Do you know what the saddest part of all this is? I said. It's not that you wanted me dead. It's not even that you were willing to kill me yourselves. It's that you convinced yourselves you were doing it for love. We do love each other, Patricia said weakly. No, you don't. You love the idea of each other. You love the fantasy you've built up around your affair. But real love doesn't involve murdering innocent people for money. You don't understand, Marcus said. I understand, perfectly. I understand that my wife is a cold-blooded killer who's been slowly murdering her husband while pretending to care for him. I understand that you're a man who's willing to help her commit murder as long as you profit from it. I understand that you're both sociopaths who have no concept of what real love actually means. Patricia started crying then, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of anger and frustration. You don't know what it's like to be trapped in a marriage with someone you don't love, she said. You don't know what it's like to find real love and not be able to have it. You're right, I don't know what that's like. Because I actually loved my wife. I actually thought we had a real marriage, a real partnership, a real life together. I was never trapped because I chose to be with you every single day for 35 years. And I was miserable for 35 years. Then you should have divorced me 35 years ago. You shouldn't have stayed married to me, taken my money, lived in my house, and then tried to kill me when you got tired of the charade. Divorce would have been complicated, expensive. This was easier. Murder was easier than divorce. Yes. The casual way she said it, like she was admitting to taking the easy way out of a difficult situation, was the final nail in the coffin of whatever feelings I'd still had for her. Well, Patricia, I hope it was worth it. Because now you're going to prison for attempted murder, and Marcus is going to prison as an accessory. You can't prove anything, she said desperately. It's your word against ours. I held up my phone, still recording our conversation. Actually, it's your own words against you. I have the last hour of conversation recorded, including your detailed confession to poisoning me and your plans to escalate to more direct methods of murder." The look of absolute terror that crossed both their faces was the most satisfying thing I'd seen in months. "You recorded us without our permission," Marcus said. "That's not legal." Actually, in Georgia, it's perfectly legal to record a conversation as long as one party consents. And since I'm one of the parties, and I consented to recording myself, this tape will be admissible in court. Patricia put her head in her hands. "Jerome, please. We can work something out. We can make this right. The only thing that can make this right is justice. And justice means you both going to prison for what you've done." I didn't call the police from the restaurant. Instead, I let Patricia and Marcus sit with the knowledge that their lives were about to implode while I went home and prepared for what came next. The next morning, I called Detective Sarah Williams at the Atlanta Police Department. I'd done my research and found out she specialized in domestic violence cases and had experience with spousal murder attempts. "Detective Williams, my name is Jerome Mitchell. I need to report an attempted murder." "Who's the victim, Mr. Mitchell?" "I am. My wife has been poisoning me for 6 months and planning to kill me for my life insurance money." There was a pause. "Mr. Mitchell, those are serious accusations. Do you have evidence to support these claims?" "I have receipts showing she purchased toxic substances. I have love letters between her and her boyfriend discussing their plans to be together after my death. I have a recording of her confessing to poisoning me and planning to escalate to more direct methods of murder." "Mr. Mitchell, can you come to the station this morning? I'd like to hear this recording and see your evidence." 3 hours later, I was sitting in Detective Williams' office, playing the recording of Patricia's confession while she took notes and shook her head in disbelief. "This is one of the most cold-blooded things I've ever heard," she said after listening to the entire conversation. "Your wife is discussing your murder like she's planning a vacation. She's been planning it for months, maybe years. And the boyfriend was willing to help her finish the job. He was more concerned about the timeline than the morality of it." Detective Williams studied the physical evidence I'd brought, the receipts, the love letters, the medical records showing heavy metal poisoning. "Mr. Mitchell, we have enough here to arrest both of them for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. Are you prepared to testify against your wife?" "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to make sure she faces justice for what she's done." The arrests happened that afternoon. Patricia was taken into custody at her office, in front of all her co-workers and clients. Marcus was arrested at his insurance agency, in front of his employees and customers. The local news picked up the story within hours. "Wife arrested for poisoning husband in life insurance plot." By evening, it was the lead story on all 3 local news stations. The story had everything the media loved: a long marriage destroyed by betrayal, a murder plot worthy of a crime novel, and recordings of the conspirators casually discussing their victim's death. Patricia and Marcus both hired expensive lawyers and tried to claim the recordings were taken out of context, that they were just fantasizing about being together, that the poisoning was accidental. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury took less than 4 hours to convict both of them on all charges. Patricia got 25 years for attempted murder and conspiracy. Marcus got 15 years as an accessory. Justice was served, but it came at a price I hadn't fully considered: the complete destruction of everything I'd thought was real about my life. 6 months after Patricia and Marcus were sentenced, I was still learning how to live as a free man. Free from lies, free from poison, free from the constant fear that the woman sleeping next to me was planning my death. But freedom, I discovered, can be its own kind of prison when you realize how much of your life was built on foundations that never existed. The house felt too big and too quiet. 35 years of memories contaminated every room, every piece of furniture, every photograph on the walls. I'd started sleeping in the guest room because our bedroom still smelled like Patricia's perfume, still held the echo of conversations I now knew were lies. The physical effects of the poisoning took months to resolve. Dr. Harrison's chelation treatments had removed most of the heavy metals from my system, but the damage to my trust, my ability to sleep peacefully, my faith in my own judgment, those wounds were healing much more slowly. I'd retired early from the plant. Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't concentrate on work when every day brought new revelations about how completely I'd been deceived. My coworkers were supportive, but I could see the questions in their eyes. How could a man live with a woman for 35 years and not know she was capable of murder? The answer was simple and devastating. I'd seen only what she wanted me to see. I'd believed what she wanted me to believe. I'd lived in a carefully constructed fiction while she lived in reality, planning and plotting and waiting for the right moment to cash in on my death. The media attention had died down after the trial, but the scandal lingered in our community. People would stop talking when I walked into a room, then whisper among themselves after I left. I was no longer Jerome Mitchell, the steady plant supervisor who'd been married to the same woman for 35 years. I was Jerome Mitchell, the man whose wife tried to poison him for insurance money. Our friends didn't know how to handle the situation. Some rallied around me with support and casseroles, but others seemed to blame me for not seeing the signs, for being gullible enough to drink poison smoothies for 6 months, for allowing myself to be victimized so completely. The house went up for sale 3 months after the trial. I couldn't afford to keep it on my early retirement income, and I couldn't stand to live surrounded by the ghosts of a marriage that had never been real. I moved into a small apartment across town, furnished with new furniture that had no history, no memories, no associations with the life I'd thought I was living. But the hardest part wasn't the physical changes. It was learning to trust my own instincts again after 35 years of having them systematically undermined by someone who claimed to love me.